We've updated our top 10 wide receiver rankings based on free agency. Only one player has dropped out of the top 10, and that's Allen Robinson, who is stuck in Chicago. But we have had some movement. So let's talk about who has risen and fallen, starting with number 10. Chris, who is it?
Yeah, we got Keenan Allen at number 10, a guy who's just every year forgotten as a wide receiver one, but puts up monster numbers. He finished as a wide receiver 14 last year, and that was with one game with Tyrod Taylor and 2 games where he basically didn't play. In the games with Justin Herbert, he was an absolute monster. He scored double-digit fantasy points in all but one game, and he had 15 or more fantasy points in almost every single game with Justin Herbert. They've gone out, the Chargers that is, they've gone out, they've improved the offensive line, which is only going to be good for Justin Herbert, and Hunter Henry is not there. So that just means more targets for Keenan Allen. He's a locked-in wide receiver one. You don't even have to draft him as a top 10 wide receiver in most drafts, but he is actually a top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, and some fantasy managers might not forgive him for that 1 week toward the end of the season where he said he was going to play and didn't actually play. But look, let's let bygones be bygones. He's a stud, high floor PPR receiver, and like you said, this offense might actually be a little bit better than it was last year. So he is very solid. Maybe doesn't even get the props he deserves as a wide receiver one in fantasy. All right, but number 9, let's go with a guy who is, I think deservedly so, taking the place of Julio Jones among the elite receivers. And in Atlanta, that's Calvin Ridley. It looks like he might be the new alpha there. 1,374 yards, 8 different 100-yard games. Ridley went from being a nice receiver, kind of wide receiver 3, really good best ball play, to a locked-in every week must start. So the question is, well, what about Julio? I know he missed a lot of last season. What if he comes back and he happens to play a full 16-game schedule? Does Ridley, drop in value? Do his numbers go down? I don't think so, right? He's got that connection with Matt Ryan. He's now emerged to the point where he is a reliable target. So I think he's pretty solidly a top 10 receiver.
Yeah, with or without Julio Jones in the lineup last year, he was great. It didn't seem to matter. And I actually think Matt Ryan is going to be better this year with new head coach and the new offensive system there. They like to run a lot of play action. And when Matt Ryan won his MVP award, they ran a lot of play action that year. I think Matt Ryan is in for a big bounce back, which is only good for Calvin Ridley. Kind of interesting to hear this guy's name at number 8, and that's Michael Thomas, because last year he was a consensus number 1 wide receiver, a first rounder. And then, he had that high ankle sprain, kind of struggled with, Drew Brees in and out of the lineup, never really gave us that, wide receiver 1 value. And now it's a little tricky to place him here because, will it be Jameis Winston or will it be Taysom Hill? Now, he was good with Taysom Hill, but obviously Jameis Winston, we've seen in the past, would be great for Michael Thomas. And if Jameis Winston is a starter, Michael Thomas probably needs to be in the top 5 wide receivers. But as of right now, with that uncertainty at quarterback and what we saw last year, we have him at number 8.
Yeah, so we've had this conversation about the new quarterback in New Orleans, whoever it is, could affect Alvin Kamara quite a bit. But the good thing is I don't think it will affect Thomas. Like you said, with Taysom Hill at quarterback, we were all worried last year. And then we saw that Thomas had 100-yard games and he was being targeted a ton. And of course, with Winston, every wide receiver will be targeted a ton. So I don't think we have to worry too much about Thomas. Look, he's not going to lead the league in receiving like he did 2 years ago, but I don't think we can drop him too much. So I think number 8 feels about right. Number 7 might even be too low for this guy, Justin Jefferson. What is the ceiling with him? We don't know because we've only seen 1 year of action. In that 1 year, 1,400 yards, breaking Randy Moss's records. That's pretty good. A lot of these rookies, we kind of give a pass. Say, well, they didn't have a full training camp. They didn't get, so to get acclimated to the league like rookies usually do by meeting in person and all this stuff. He didn't care. It didn't matter. And you know what? He started out really slow to begin with. Just think how much higher his numbers could have been, right, if they utilized him more those first couple of games. So could he take a step forward in his second year? Absolutely. I'm not sure how much more of a step he could take, but let's just say that you have got to feel really solid about Jefferson. And there's no new competition to this date being brought in. They should feel really good with Jefferson and Thielen. Jefferson being the number 1 target in Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, we're going to have the same exact situation going into next year, barring injury or something. He's a clear number 1 there. Thielen, more of the possession, red zone guy, but Justin Jefferson's ceiling is sky high. And another young receiver whose ceiling is sky high is A.J. Brown. And unlike Justin Jefferson, he's got no competition for targets now because Jonnu Smith went to New England. Corey Davis is gone. He's the clear number one guy there. And I don't know if they're going to bring in another receiver or what they're going to do, but A.J. Brown was already a beast, and now it's just him and who knows else. He should finally see, weekly 8 to 10 plus targets. And this is a guy who, it doesn't matter what defense he plays, get the ball in his hands and he makes things happen. We've got him at 6, and that might be a little low. It's just because the top 5 is so stacked. But you talk about the ceiling for Justin Jefferson. I think the ceiling is just as massive, if not more massive, for A.J. Brown next year.
Yeah, you've got to think they're going to draft somebody at some point at receiver in Tennessee, but that's not going to hurt him. Look, as of right now, I think the only other guy that they brought in is maybe Josh Reynolds, and if that's his competition for targets, yeah, I feel pretty good about Brown. All right, next is a guy who, going into last season, arguably was the number one receiver, taking a little bit of a dip, but DeAndre Hopkins is still as safe as it gets, Mr. Consistent. And a lot of people feel like it was almost a disappointment for him because thought going to Arizona would help him going to that air raid offense. But maybe we forget the fact that he actually tied his career high with 115 receptions. He was almost as prolific of a receiver as he had been before. The yardage was a little bit down, but come on, let's not get too picky. It's just the expectations are so high for him, right? When he isn't the top guy, I guess we're all a little disappointed. I don't think there's any reason we should expect him to decline this year. If anything, maybe there'll be a little bit more of a comfort level on this team. And AJ Green, that kind of maybe helps the offense a little bit, but is not going to threaten Hopkins in any way.
No, solid top 5 wide receiver with tons of upside every week. And like you said, second year in this offense, second year at Kyler Murray, you got to think it's going to be more of the same, if not better. And it's just, again, kind of like with A.J. Brown. It's just because the 4 receivers ahead of him are just that good right now. And starting with number 4, and that's your guy, DK Metcalf. All that hate, all those comments we got about, DK Metcalf's value is going to tank when Russell Wilson is gone. Well, guess what? Russell Wilson is not going to be gone. And guess what? Chris Carson isn't going to be gone either. It's going to be the same offense we saw last year. And we know at this point that DK Metcalf is the guy. It's not Tyler Lockett anymore. He's an afterthought. DK Metcalf is 100% the guy. He had a great rookie year. He took a huge leap last year, and I think he takes another leap this year. And you said it before, and I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the year, he is the number 1 overall wide receiver in fantasy. But we have him at number 4, which feels, totally right for him right now. Upside is all there for him headed into 2021.
Yeah, I'm not quite ready for my bold predictions for this season yet, but I'll agree with you. I mean, I really think he could be the number 1 receiver for fantasy in 2021. But the great thing is you don't have to draft him as the first receiver, and that's why we don't have him ranked number 1, because you can get him in the second round. And you know what? These next couple of guys, I think there's a good reason to have them just a little bit higher as of right now. Stefon Diggs did happen to lead the NFL in targets and receptions last year. We saw Josh Allen take a massive leap in progress, so you've got to feel really good about him. Is Diggs going to sustain the same level of production? Probably. You could argue that he could be the number 1 guy on this list. But again, we just haven't seen him do it in Buffalo more than this one season. As far as free agency goes, John Brown is gone. Emmanuel Sanders is in. I don't think that really moves the needle very much either way, but still, Stefon Diggs, number 3 for our rankings as of right now.
Yeah, that feels perfect. Got to be number 3. Can't be ahead of the next 2 guys, but 3 seems perfect. And we saw last year with Josh Allen what his ceiling was, and I'm sure it'll continue in 2021. Then at number 2, we have the Chiefs wide receiver, Tyreek Hill. Got to have him at 2, attached to Patrick Mahomes. Has one of the highest weekly ceilings of any wide receiver, of any fantasy player, really. We saw in that one quarter where he just basically won you your week in a quarter of action. Is a home run away at any moment. And we know this offense, they want to throw the ball as they should. They've got Patrick Mahomes. They've got Tyreek Hill. They've got Travis Kelce. So I don't think anybody can argue with Tyreek Hill at number 2.
Yeah, everybody wants a piece of this Chiefs offense, but still, the best piece to have is the number one receiver for Pat Mahomes, and that would be Hill. We know he can have a monster game at any time, but also he's proven to be pretty consistent. It's not all or nothing. So Hill has to be number 2, but of course, number 1, you already know, it's Davante Adams. And the best thing to happen to Adams and his fantasy value this offseason is what didn't happen, and that's that the Packers, once again, did not land a big free agent like everyone was hoping and praying. Kenny Golladay, nope. Will Fuller, sorry. No big name receiver going to the Packers. Will they draft someone early? It's too early to see, but even if they do, is that really going to make you drop Adams out of the number 1 spot? I don't think so. Is he going to score 18 touchdowns again? Probably not, but 12, 13, 14, I think that's still pretty fair. Even with regression, there's no way that you can say that Adams is anything but the top receiver as of right now. Aaron Rodgers is looking like he's still in his prime. So Davante Adams, number 1 receiver, I think we could pretty much lock that up all through the preseason.
Yeah, completely agree. And people forget, if he hadn't missed those 2 games early in the year, he might have outscored Alvin Kamara and been the number 1 fantasy player last year. So he could have regression going into 2021 and still be an absolute beast. He's definitely the number 1 wide receiver.
All right. So what do you think about our top 10? Do you agree, disagree? Anybody too high or low? Somebody missing? We would love to put Terry McLaurin there, but there's just too many good receivers. Who else do you think deserves a nod? Let us know. Hit us up with a comment. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We definitely appreciate it. All right. Thanks for watching.